Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like spam cities and say need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days?
Go back to Nostromo.
Don't remember that. Because now you just push a button that says
You want to know why that doesn't happen in retail? Because it fucking sucks! How about you just make a good
Would you
game?
like to play Facebook? Ooh, would you like to drag some troops and champions? Sorry,
Even if you
followers
follow
into fucking
You can
holes
legitimately
and play
get to level 100 in a day. A day. A fucking day.
Oh, hello there, dear viewer. I didn't see you there. You've just caught me in the middle of a pet battle. Classic servers have been announced, and those pesky vanilla players have come out of the woodworks once again to preach about how the older version of the game was superior. They do get dreadfully boring, don't they? Well, we don't want their toxic behaviour to be rewarded.
Ow!
So today, I'm going to show you a very special technique to silence those classic players by making up horse shit and pretending we know what we're talking about. Even if you chew crayons like me, this technique should work. You don't need to have ever played classic either. All you need to do is follow my advice. Let's get right into it. First and foremost, it's important that we don't underestimate these players. Remember, these are the same barbarians that don't want LFR, flying mounts, or transmog. When engaged in a debate with a classic player, remember to tell them that they argue with feeling over fact. They might use words like adventure or community. This is all a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and these things aren't even important in an MMORPG. But when we're approaching from this angle, we need to make sure we cover our own asses too. Make sure to exclude any factual information that might harm your argument. Don't mention things such as subscription numbers or the success of Nostalrius. Remember, we're trying to explain why retail is better, and this information could be used against us. Before we get into the main points here, let's talk about the mannerisms we need to use when speaking to classic players. We need to demoralize them and make them feel as alienated as possible. After all, they are delusional and don't know what they want. So make sure to frame your perspective as if you're speaking for the whole WoW community. Instead of I didn't like 1 to 60, nobody liked 1 to 60. Instead of I didn't like PvP, nobody liked PvP. Instead of I didn't like walking to dungeons, nobody liked walking to dungeons. It's important to make broad sweeping statements like this without going into too much detail, because this gives off the illusion that we know what we're talking about, and that we aren't just regurgitating misinformed scat. So, any questions? Splendid. Now we can familiarize ourselves with some of the vocabulary we'll be using. Let's start with some of the basics and save the best for last, as it's the main point of this video. Grindy/repetitive. Either one of these will do. Nobody has ever even heard this argument before, so it tends to be quite disarming for classic players. And as a retail player, you have a high ground to take here, since Legion isn't grindy or repetitive at all. Too time consuming. This one here is one of my personal favourites. I like to put on a facade with this one and pretend I have a life. I'll say things like, People are busy now, and can't commit to vanilla like it's a full-time job. The sneaky part is, they don't have to, and I am talking shit. Playing video games is leisure time, and the amount of time you spend on it is quite literally the amount you choose to. It's dumb to assume that someone could play 2 hours of Legion a day, but not 2 hours of Classic a day. However, if you were to play Classic for 2 hours a day, you wouldn't be able to reach Grand Marshal, which is why Legion is better, because everyone gets to be special. Saying that you'd need to play Classic all day long to make any meaningful progress is a fairy tale, but it's worked in our favour for years. Accessibility. As you all know by now, in Legion, a new player could boost to 100 or 110, and kill the final boss of the expansion in under a week, and that's totally fine. In Classic, you don't get to see AQ on Axe straight away, and that's not okay. Here are a list of all the players I've met that have quit the game because they didn't get to clear the final raid immediately. Anyway, these points should send those vanilla players running home with their tails between their legs. But if they don't, it's time to introduce you to the undefeatable, perfect magnum opus of beating a Classic player in any argument. That's right, tell them to don those rose-tinted goggles, and remind them it's just nostalgia. This is a triple whammy. This powerful word accomplishes 3 things. It makes Classic players look stupid, it makes Classic sound bad, and it makes us look smart. When coming up with an argument with any substance gets too difficult, and drawing comparisons between the 2 games makes your brain melt, just use this bad boy. Check out this visual demonstration of how nostalgia can be used to deflect any reason Classic players give for preferring the older game. This argument can be deployed as a sort of reflective force field. To further demonstrate just how effective this is, let's put this into action with a hypothetical scenario. It's time for a pop quiz. You're playing on a vanilla private server, and you approach a level 60 character in Ironforge. He's pretty good. It's clear he has a lot of time invested into his character. You tell him that this game is bad, and that he's just being nostalgic. Will he A. Ignore you, B. Laugh in your face, or C. Break down into tears and admit that you are correct? Time's up. If you guessed C, you're correct. The level 60 admits that vanilla isn't that good, and that he's only playing it to feel young again. And now that that pop quiz is out of the way...
What are you doing?
Huh?
What's all this about, eh?
Nothing.
What's all
I
this?
was just...
Go on, get out of here, shoo! Go away! Nostalgia nutters. Calling vanilla players nostalgic as a basis to insult their perspective on the game is a very dumb thing to do. You're not saying anything profound about the game whatsoever, and you choose to ignore the success of private servers in recent years. Most people who want Classic have played it recently and have a clear perspective on what they want. Why are you so desperate for Classic to fail? And why do you care so much? If it's as bad as you claim it is, you have nothing to worry about, and retail will be absolutely fine. Nostalgia is little more than the pull factor that brings you back into the game. It dissolves very quickly once you actually start playing. if people disagree with some of the changes Blizzard have made over the years and would rather play an older version of the game, this is a perfectly valid reason to, and nostalgia is irrelevant in this circumstance. How on earth would nostalgia keep people around for years? Why is it so difficult to critique classic fairly if you dislike it?
People that play it are going to get burnt out after 1 month and quit.
You fucking donkey!
This is a phrase we see thrown around, and it's yet another stunning display of ignorance, and we're left to wonder if any of these people do any research before they open their pie holes. Yet again, the very existence and success of private servers contradict every stupid claim you try to make. Classic WoW set the groundwork for the most successful MMORPG of all time, and Legion wouldn't exist if vanilla wasn't successful. So why do you think people are going to quit after 1 month? Even after a few months? If private servers have stood the test of time, why wouldn't an official product? Rather than answering these questions, though, you'd rather plug your ears, much like a child would, and go,
La 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 la, not listening, nostalgia fag, there's no good reason to play vanilla.
Trying to call hundreds of thousands, or even millions of people nostalgic in an attempt to denounce classic WoW is absurd. You seem to lack any self-awareness of how stupid this sounds. It's conspiracy theory level stupid. Calling someone nostalgic in the context of vanilla is little more than a personal insult. Insulting people for liking something is a dumb thing to do. If you enjoy Legion, that's fine. There are valid reasons to, and it's a vastly different game. This is only aimed at the small percentage of retail players that spout this idiotic dribble. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Thank you everybody for listening to my tirade. I enjoyed talking about this, so I want to keep the momentum going. In the next episode, we'll be challenging the LFR-tards that claim that Raid Finder is a beneficial system that's healthy for the game. But will this opinion hold up when we get a bit more in depth? Keep an eye on my channel to find out. Until then, cheerio!